My name is Darren Gabriel, and I follow Jesus. Welcome to Real Questions, Real Faith, podcast where we wrestle with questions of faith. And today the question is why I went into full-time ministry. So I graduated from engineering school, civil engineering degree in 1983, and I began immediately working in a consulting firm in Florida, where I learned how to do consulting engineering. And I did that for a total of 10 years. About 7 years into, so the first 5 years I wrestled with, is this really what I should be doing? And I would talk to my wife and I would have meltdowns and things like that because it was really hard. I really was out of my depth. I was a C student in college and I was working for a firm with master's degree engineers across the board. And I barely got out alive with the bachelor's. And so I felt over my head. But it was a time when there was a lot of growth and they were hiring a lot of people, and I wasn't the only one that was there without a master's because they were needing engineers. They were desperate. And so I stuck around, and once in a while I would get down and think I need to go teach high school or something. And I felt like God kept telling me, give it one more year. And every time I'd have one of those low points, I felt like I'd pray and God would say, give it another year. And so I kept pushing through, and I eventually got my feet under me about year 5, and an opportunity broke out, and I ended up moving from West Palm Beach, Florida to Tampa, Florida, where I started a new project that became my project. And that was a big day, a big moment. It coupled with I got my professional engineer license, and I was getting my feet under me. And for the first time, I felt like I was literally contributing to the bottom line of the company in a way that was meaningful and satisfying. So it was really the first time in my engineering career that I felt like I was getting traction and that this was going to work. Then I got a memo from the president of the company. Now, we were about 400 employees at the time, and all 400 of us got the same memo. He was the new president of the company. He just started, and he wanted to get a sense of where people were. And so he sent out a half-page memo that basically said this: what do you have a burning desire to do? What's your passion? He was looking for a company man answer. I gave him one. But I knew as I wrestled with that question that that wasn't true for me. I felt like God was calling me into the ministry, but this was the first time I felt called to leave when things were going well. Before, it had always been the grass is greener over there. I'm going to try something else because it's hard. But things were actually going really well. I went home. I told my wife, and I said, I think it's time to go into the ministry. I think I need to go into full-time ministry or go into the ministry. I don't even know if I'd identified full-time yet or not. And she said for the first time, I'm ready, which caught me off guard, but it was pretty confirming for me at the time. So I said, well, let's come up with a 1-year plan. Let's work the plan. If that doesn't work, then, or things don't fall into place, we'll work a 2-year version of that. And we basically worked through getting out of debt. I took a seminary extension course to see if I could even do it. We talked to pastors and friends and just tried to get a sense of what they were seeing. And every door continued to fly open, and there was confirmation across the board that this was the path. And 13 months later, I'm in seminary. And we began our seminary journey of 3 years going through at Southeastern Baptist Theological Seminary. Here's the thing. I will tell you, if you listen to the podcast, the episode about why I got baptized as a believer, you'll hear in there that it wasn't until after I followed in obedience in baptism that God gave me that calling. Even though it'd been 10 years, I've been a believer for 10 years. It was like God waited until I got baptized to show him I was willing to obey him in anything. So I think that was key. And then it was just trying to be obedient, but testing it. Like, I think I'm hearing from God. I think God's calling me into full-time ministry. Well, how do I test that? I took steps towards the obedience, but I tried to be careful not to be overly impulsive. And so I wrestled with it, like I said, in a number of ways. Taking a seminary class just to see if I would even like it. I loved it. And then talking to pastors and friends that would give me honest feedback about, I don't really see you going to the ministry, or I've always thought that. And so that was very encouraging. And of course, my wife was on board. That really made a big difference. So I don't know if that's a question you've ever wrestled with. I think there's nothing wrong with part-time ministry, bivocational ministry, co-vocational ministry. whether you're talking missions around the world or missions around the corner. There's a lot of different ways to go into the ministry, and it doesn't have to be full-time as far as getting paid by a church or a ministry. There's a lot of different ways to do it. And I would just say be open. If this is something you feel like God's calling you to do, tugging on your heart to do, I would just say move in the direction of obedience as if it's what he's saying, but look for ways to confirm that. And it could be that it happens very quickly, or it could be like for me, it took 13 months for it to come together. But it came together, and it's been an amazing journey, and I have no regrets looking back. So I hope you'll share this with somebody that needs to hear it. Maybe just post it on social media. Subscribe to keep up with the next episode of Real Questions and Real Faith. Drop a comment. Let us know what you think. Do you have a story like this you'd be willing to share? I'd love to hear it. Reach out. Let me hear from you. My name's Darren Gabriel, and I follow Jesus.